Hello there, my name is Rachel. I like to talk about animation, and today we're going to talk about a sort of new anime series. In fact, it's sort of a reboot for a show called Masameer. That's the original. This is sort of the reboot version of Counting Masameer. If you never heard this cartoon, I do not blame you, because Netflix don't really promote this that much or hardly. In fact, the only people actually know this cartoon actually exists, especially if you're an American Middle Eastern or Middle Eastern period, because probably the only people who know this show exists. But unfortunately, this show is really good. It's one of those that I can see why some people get confused watching the first two episodes of this season, because I have seen season 1 and season 2. Season 1 has sort of kind of pacing issues, but season 2 sort of fixed that. But besides that, I still recommend it. But at the same time, I have to warn you, you at least have to skip the first two episodes of season 1, get to episode 3. Because the first two episodes are kind of confusing. You don't know what's going on. You at least have to understand sort of the premise. Basically, the premise is sort of like Charlie Brown for adults, set sort of in the Middle East, basically talking about very kind of taboo subject matters, sort of making fun of it, but also aware that actually is a thing in the Middle East. But I also see the changing of the old regime into the new one. In other words, the young generation and the old, and sort of explaining how things sort of change. And this show does points out, and I'll show you will not get lost, because this show does explain a little bit of everything. I mean, just enough to at least understand what they're basically the topic they're actually talking about, and they explain it just enough to just get it. Of course, I do admit I was lost probably 1 or 2 episodes. They only have, I think, a total of 20 episodes, if I remember right, or I think it was 18. But only 2 episodes, you'd be a little confused. But I do recommend it if you go watch it a dub version. Put the subtitles on, because the show doesn't translate like posters or subtitles, because they just don't translate for some reason. Only the sub version, you have to press the sub just to get it. But besides that, the dub is pretty good. They translate pretty well. The jokes are great, but the only problem is it falls to that sort of Charlie Brown sort of kind of storytelling, because this show is sort of kind of slow burn. It takes its time to sort of build and actually show you what's going on, especially the first 2 episodes, because 2 episodes you're sort of lost what's going on. You just don't get it till episode 3, because episode 3 you actually introduce the 3 main leads. It's Trent, Seth, it's Saturn. Yeah, I know I butchered their names, I'm sorry, but you follow them because they're sort of kind of representative of the middle or lower class of Middle East, the things they have to deal with and sort of figure out how to get out of. But I love it, it's sort of more just that. It's more about the last generations and the new generation sort of clashing, showing things are changing of the Middle East, because everything they shows the sort of progress they do, but at the same time seeing the old generation sort of complain the things they have done right now, but showing the new generation are sort of tired of doing things their way. It's time to change. In fact, you have some episodes sort of focusing on that sort of politics, but once again, you will not get bored, at least the first 2 episodes, because you will get lost, because this show tried to do sort of grab your attention, making sort of things fun of, but the only problem is the jokes is sort of far. The comedy is more build, set up, and punchline. What I mean is, they set up the first time the joke in the very beginning to the very end, punchline. The reason why that, because they do this because you want to relate to the character, see or at least understand. And they do. In fact, I think one of the most interesting side characters, only showed once, is about this guy who needs help about his mother who had a heart attack. In fact, the 4th heart attack, but the only problem is the nurse or the hospital doesn't have any vacancies for her, and he's freaking out. He doesn't want to do. This guy just breaks down, cries, he just complains, why you not listening to us? We need more help. We need something for her. Please help us. And that's deep and sad. But at the same time, you have this other guy who got popular in Twitch because he had a mole of his butt, and nobody knows why. It's almost like this sort of debate about his mole, but nobody knows what this mole is, cancer or just a mole. And once more, that is the setup to the very end. What happened to the other guy who's freaking out, crying, and giving one of the best performances in this show. It's just a setup I won't ruin, but it's sort of kind of weird, random. It's kind of funny. And that's the thing, just grabs your attention because they do sort of dramatic drama things that you just don't expect. Not like Family Guy or The Simpsons. In fact, you could say The Simpsons does dramatic, but I think of it, they remove all the comedy, but put more dramatic moments or relatable moments to make it sort of more interesting. Now, let's talk about at least the three main leads, but I feel find it fascinating. They don't really use them that much. In fact, I said it before, the first two episodes, you follow side characters. In the third episode, you found the three main leads, and that's not to be the first or last time they actually do it. There are other episodes you just don't follow them for some reason. You follow this completely different guy. And I found that sort of kind of refreshing and unique because the main three leads are sort of interesting, but you really don't get to know that much. Like Tran, he's basically a British dog who sort of kind of underwhelmed because people don't take him serious because he's sort of a dog. Think of it sort of Brian from the Peter Griffin show, the Family Guy show now, where he's that sort of smart, kind of, I'm gonna say egotistical. He's smart, but he's not clever. Like, in some moments he doesn't get it, and he just falls apart. Or trying to do something dumb, and he does it, but he's trying to be kind of helpful. But very again, he's not stupid. He is very intelligent. He knows when he's being used. And that feels sort of refreshing because none of the three characters never was sort of ruined or frustrated or kind of dumb used. Now where it's like each character get their sort of respect. Now you can talk about the second character is Sad. Once more, you don't know enough, but it's sort of the character who is sort of obsessive. Like he has sort of compulsively to do sort of a fad just for 2 months, but his rest of the friends get to suffer because he sort of become obsessive compulsive. You least that sort of you think he's sort of crazy in a way, but he's not. He's just sort of compulsive, excessive, doing things. You also have Sadu. You could say he's sort of the young people, what they're sort of lost, but trying to find what he's supposed to do in life. Like each character sort of represents sort of a manlister sort of person in other words, but you don't really get the deep dive that much. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. I think the most sort of development is Saturn, that he has like a very good episode on season 2, that he did something really stupid in that episode. They don't really tell you, but all three characters have to do a play in sort of this orphanage, but at the same time they're being punished. They do something they didn't tell in front of you, right in front of your face. It's more like, yeah, they did something horrible, but you have to use your own imagination what they did. They don't show it. Just see the punishment. But I love that they focus on Sad. Like he tried to be entertained about these orphan kids, but the only problem is he getting punished, getting reading his script over and over again. The point he trying to talk to the kids as their equal. Like, yeah, you're orphans. Your parents left. Don't worry, but it's not the worst thing. In fact, I am an orphan. My father passed away. And in fact, he wasn't a good man. Doesn't mean it's a bad thing he passed away or not. It's the fact what you take it from it. Do not let your parents define you. Don't let their tragedy define you. Find what you must do in your own life. Try to be a good person. And that itself is just sort of deep. I mean, it's not the first time. And I think that's the reason I love this series. It just sort of, out of nowhere, they just spout wisdom. Very interesting, especially what they do with certain characters. I think one of my favorite episodes is season 2, episode 3, if I remember right. It's like a 30-minute episode. All focus about the guy who sort of need to look for a specific book, specific gangster wants, but the only problem is the guy who has to find the book, he nothing to do with the gangster. It just fall on his lap. He trying to figure out how to get out of it. It's something just no comedy, no satire. I mean, a little bit of satire, but it's all serious. It's basically a gangster episode. It's just done so amazing. It's one of those just your mouth just dropped. Just wow. You top all this, the animation is good, but it's not like kind of human realistic. It's just basically more shaped kind of humans. Like the face is more square with a big nose. Kind of just shape design. They still look human, but they're more kind of easy to draw type of characters. But once again, it doesn't diminish the show. It doesn't does anything just to ruin it. They do talk about death. In fact, they do have a lot of gore. That's the shocking part. It's just done so well. Of course, I do have to admit, this could be sort of confusing if you're not a Middle Eastern or understand culture of a Middle Eastern, but once again, don't worry, the show does explain it. But the only problem is there may be one, two things they just don't get. That's fine. It's like anime. Let's face it, you watch anime. I'm 100% sure there are these two or three things you just don't get about anime because once more it's Japanese culture. But this think of it, this is a Middle Eastern, but take it as sort of like an anime approach. Not over exaggeration. It's just sort of think about that when you're watching the series. Now I do recommend watch episode 3 first. The other first two episodes are no right. Just depends if you like episode 3. If you like episode 3, you probably like the whole series. Give it a chance. Just be warned, season 1 is a little slow, but season 2 is so much better, more improved. In fact, you want to see the rest of the series, you can actually watch it on YouTube. I think the original one is on YouTube. Yeah, I think also the reboot also, but I'm not 100% sure of that one. He does have a movie, but it's not dubbed. It's just all subbed. Only this version is dubbed in Netflix. I don't think you have this on YouTube, but it's sort of it's more like if you need to know, you know. Now I got nothing else to say. Just one question: do you actually see heard this cartoon? Tell me down below. Let me know. I got nothing else to say. Just thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and have a wonderful day. Bye.